Hey, it's Amy. This video is supposed to be filmed much earlier when the windows were still open and I still had the benefit of natural lighting. However, I was 3 minutes into filming it and I realized that an item popped up in my calendar saying that I had an interview to conduct, and I went, what the fuck? I don't remember ever scheduling an interview for today, but apparently it was a mistake. It was supposed to be next week's interview, but the coordinator had accidentally emailed all of us, so off I rushed along with like several other people that were supposed to be part of the panel, and ended up just going back out. But by then I decided I wanted to finish reading The Strain instead. So today's video is, because it's pretty late at night and people are starting to go to sleep, but I can hear my neighbor cheering and gaming, so he's still awake and I'm still awake and nowhere close to sleeping yet. So we're just gonna have a casual chat about things that I have read and how Thanksgiving went. So for those of you who didn't get a Thanksgiving weekend, I'm sorry, that sucks. I had so much fun on my Thanksgiving weekend, and I really wish it was longer, honestly. Like, I feel like I have senioritis right now. I'm not ready to be back at work yet, but here I am. So for Thanksgiving this year, I think I mentioned in my previous video that I was deciding between buying Hades, the game, on PC or Switch. End up going with the Switch. And I am so glad I made that decision because I don't know, like I said, like I love gaming in the PC, but there's just something about hacking away at things on the Switch that's so satisfying, and I don't get the same feeling when I play in the PC. Like, I prefer the PC for my more puzzle-based games. But with this one, it's an action RPG, which I normally don't play because I have very slow reflexes. So normally when I play anything with like fighting involved, like I tend to die before I know it. Like, I tried playing Resident Evil and like I would just blink and suddenly I was on the ground being hacked to death by zombies and I had no idea how it happened, and I went, what the fuck? And it just slowed down the development of the story, which is really all I care about when I play games for the most part. So it just pissed me off, and I prefer watching games like that. So, like, I like tactical RPGs and I like turn-based RPGs because those allow me some time to think a little bit before I make a move. But this game is different. So, like I said before, it's called Hades, and it came out at the end of September, I believe, this year. But like there was a beta version released 2 years ago. So the premise of the game is you are Zagreus, the son of Hades and Persephone. Only at the beginning of the game you don't know that you're Persephone's son. You believe that you're the son of Hades and another goddess in the underworld. And your mother, Persephone, has left your father, and she is no longer in the underworld. So you want to know, what the hell happened. And you're also sick of spending all this time in the Hall of Hades and in Tartarus and the levels of the underworld, just because, it gets really hot down there, and like things, like there's just all these dead people and nothing really changes. So you kind of want to get to the surface. So your goal is to fight your way through all of these like dungeon style battle levels and beat like the bosses in each of the levels of the underworld. So you start out in Tartarus, you go up to Asphodel, Elysium, names you might recognize from Greek mythology if you are into Greek mythology like I was when I was younger. And you go up to the top, and you intend to find your mother and ask her like why she left and all that, because your father, Hades, he's like the strictest of Asian fathers. Like, imagine a CEO father who is always working and wants you to inherit his company, but you're kind of not up to snuff. Like, you mess up his, like, the paperwork when you try to do it. You don't have the right amount of ambition. Like, you're always distracted by other things. So yeah, like, basically you're a disappointment to your father. So the two of you do not get along, and at the beginning of the game you are in the Hall of Hades. Actually, I think it's called the House of Hades. I should know by now, because every time you die you end up back at this place. You equip your weapon and like you leave. I said before that this game is very different from other games because normally when I play a game like this, like I said, am not very good when it comes to fighting. So I am bound to die multiple times, and usually I have to return to like a save point or a checkpoint like many times before I can like get past it, depending on how tough the boss is to beat. But with this game, there is really no save point. Like, basically, once you get out past the House of Hades, like now I'm really wondering, is it the House or the Hall of Hades? I think House of Hades is the name of one of the Percy Jackson books, actually, so this is the Hall of Hades. But anyways, as you're like going out and fighting through the dungeons, like if you happen to die, which eventually you will do, no matter how good you get, like, or you are, you will end up floating in through the river Styx, which runs through the Hall of Hades, and coming out back in your father's throne room. But what makes this game unique is that even though you have to start back at the very beginning, your progress is acknowledged. So basically, you exit the Styx, and Hypnos, the god of sleep, is there just tallying up, like basically checking in all the shades who are trying to make appeals to Hades at the front, and he tells you, like, oh, like, I see you got killed by insert name of monster or demon here, and like the other characters in the hall who are sitting around also acknowledge like what you've accomplished. Like, they'll say, I see you made it to Elysium this time, and kind of give you pointers, which is very interesting. So even though you like have to start back at the very beginning, you don't feel like you are just repeating everything over and over again. So it doesn't get boring because the story itself keeps moving forward. Like I said before, like, so Hades is there, and there's Cerberus, Achilles, Nyx, who is either, I can't remember if she's the goddess of night or if she's night embodied in like a woman's form, but there's like various recognizable characters hanging around this place, and you can interact with them, and as you go farther and farther up the levels, you run into other characters who might know them, and then you can bring that knowledge back to the hall and ask those characters about it. And I actually ended up looking forward to dying several times, which I never thought I'd say. Like, sometimes I'd be talking to a character in the Hall of Hades, and they would leave me, and I would go, wait, like, I feel unsatisfied, you didn't tell me, like, what I wanted to hear yet, and then I would learn something new while up, like, at a higher level, and then be at the verge of death and go, yes, I get to die and go back to the hall, and I get to talk to that character and basically pump them for more information. Like, I'm all about that when I play a game. Like, I'm a very nosy person, and it kind of translates over to my gaming. I'm always trying to, like, basically talk to characters and exhaust all the dialogue options. And here, like, after a certain point, like, you'll talk to someone, and then, like, the option to talk just disappears completely. So you can't really repeat dialogue, which is nice. But yeah, like, so it's a game that requires a bit of strategy in a way, and it's just also a lot of fun. The characters are fantastic. The dialogue is so well written. I don't know how, like, the game mechanics work. Like, I don't know how they designed this game, but like whoever came up with it, like how it works, like how it forces you to like basically explore, get to know the world, talk to people. Basically, like, the game design is just very good. Like, the way they do it, like, I've never seen a game like this. If you have, let me know so I can check out the other game. But I was just very, very happy with it. And like, I'm 2/3 of the way through probably, and I expect to beat it sometime this week. So I am so excited to see how it ends. The reason I'm bringing this up, again, like, it sounds like I'm going off on tangents all the time, and I kind of am, but it's is because this morning I woke up and I found out the Hugo Awards are actually giving an award next year for Best Game of the Year, Best Sci-Fi and Fantasy Themed Game, which has never happened in history. I think their, like, rationale for it this year is because during quarantine or COVID, everybody has been gaming, and, like, the stories in games are also a big deal, and, like, they comfort us, they give us, like, a form of escapism. Like, games tell stories too. Like, it's not, like, unless you're playing something like, actually, even, I tried playing Overwatch just because, like, I was really into the characters. Like, I read, like, the little comics that they had accompanying the game release, and I tried it, and, like, it's not for me. Like, I don't like playing those types of games, but I still followed, like, the character arcs as they developed. So like, yeah, like, I think, like, characters and world building and storytelling are super important to games, like the way they are to books. So I am looking forward to seeing who gets nominated. Since it's next year's award, it's going to be a game that came out in 2020, so I'm hoping it turns out to be at least Hades at least gets a nomination, just because like I know we're all, like most of us are probably like familiar with Greek mythology to some extent, like from school, from like just getting into it through like a series like Percy Jackson or something. But despite that, the world building in here is still very fresh and new, and that's hard to do. Like I feel like I've read retellings and everything, or reimaginings of Greek mythology before. They're not always successful. Sometimes they read like kind of like bad fan fiction. But this one, like I said, it presents the world to you in a way that's very modern, even though like it's still respectful of like the origin, like the classical origin of the story. Like, you just can't help but love the characters. Like Zagreus, like when I first saw him, I was like, ooh, what a hunk. But, you know, he also grew on me because of his personality, like his snarky comments, and just after a while he became very attractive. And I rather like this portrayal of Hades. Lately it seems like everyone in social media has been very, very into Hades, which is a bit strange to me because, I mean, I like Disney's version of Hades just because he's so funny, but I have no intention of dating the guy or anything like that. But lately people have been thinking of him as kind of like boyfriend material, probably because he's the only god who seems to be monogamous. I don't know, I've always found him very grim and very boring and bitter. Petty. Probably doesn't help that growing up, my parents had this lamp in their house that depicted the rape of Persephone. Like, it's actually the title of like the artwork that by Bernini, I think. I think rape back then had a different meaning. Like it, not the way we know it now. I think it referred to more of like a kidnapping or something, if I recall correctly. Either way, just kind of disturbing. Like my sister and I always talked about it. We're like, that ugly statue is still there, and it depicts such a disturbing like incident, and yet it's just displayed right out in the living room. I've always thought Hades was not very desirable, and in here he's kind of the way I pictured him, like just super grouchy and very cold and not very understanding. And I can see why Persephone left, is just what I'm saying. Anyways, enough about my latest obsession. I'm just super ecstatic that the worlds of SFF fiction and gaming are starting to blur and overlap and intertwine the way they should have done many, many years ago. Anyways, so tonight I am drinking a Zinfandel from Gallivant, and basically I got it from Scout and Cellar, which is that company I told you about in like one of my other videos. I swear I don't work for them, I just really like their wine. But this shipment came this morning. I woke up and I was like, the FedEx truck is outside. So I thought that was my delivery. They said a 21-year-old had to be present to sign for it, so I was ready. It's so cold where I am today that the wine bottles were like freezing when I brought it in. Like it was 28 degrees last night, which if you are in a colder region, you're probably like, meh. But for me, like 28 degrees, I'm a weak California girl. 28 degrees is very cold. Not that I'm complaining. I prefer cold weather to hot weather. If it's gonna be cold, I hope it stays cold, because it's been, last week it went up to like 81 degrees, and then today, like I said, last night was 28 degrees. The weather needs to make up its mind, because we're all in PJs pretty much 24/7, and PJs, they're only, like, they only come in like either hot weather or cold weather form. Like there's like it's not like your work clothes where you can kind of layer them all like fancily or anything like that. But yeah, I mentioned in like a previous video that I was reading the book Cork Dork by Bianca Bosker, which is about a journalist who gets very into the world of wine tasting and decides that she wants to quit her job and become a sommelier. And she actually succeeds at it. Like where I was last time, like she was still like kind of learning the ropes and like meeting the different people in the business and kind of like learning about why they got into what they got into, what makes them like willing to give up so much time, energy, money, like another career, whatever, to go off and taste wine and serve wine and suggest wine to people in restaurants. So I finished the book, and she ended up working as a sommelier in this restaurant in New York, and It's just so fun reading it. She's the narrator of the audiobook that I was listening to, and she is a great narrator and she's a good storyteller. So I read it and I don't know, it really made me want to get a drink of wine. And I think I've said it made me want to get a drink, but it also made me want to try to see if I can discern the different flavors within the wine. I was like, I wonder if I can try doing the smell thing that they do, where they kind of I've seen Hannibal do it. He does it so nicely, but I stuck my face in here and I was like, all I smell is wine. I've been drinking wine for a long time. I know I like red wine. I hate white wine. I know I like the darker wines like Merlot. This one is a Zinfandel. But I can't I can't really tell the difference between them exactly. Sometimes I'll drink it and say I don't like this wine, and then I like this wine, but that's as far as it goes. And I know you're supposed to drink white wine with seafood, but I don't even follow that rule. There's a part in the book where she starts, where they're super horrified because this table orders a red wine to go with their seafood, and I just cackled because I was like, I'm pretty sure I've done that many times at restaurants. The thing is, I don't really dine at fine dining establishments because I don't enjoy dressing up for dinner. I used to back when I was in college, where it was just fun to do with your friends, but after a certain time, a certain age, you're just I'm just so lazy. And I just don't want to do it. I just want, when I go out to eat, I just want to, and it helps that I like cheap food. So, I'm not just eating cheap food because it's all I can afford. I really enjoy eating cheap food. I like fast food. I think the most money I spend in a meal is actually for the alcohol. That's what it is. But even with the wine, I usually drink pretty medium priced wine at the most. I have no interest in splurging on a $500 bottle like what they do in the Cork Dork book. One of my closest friends is marrying into money, and lately she's been telling me if you can splurge, you should try to splurge on this meal. I know it costs $2.50 to start with and you have to pay extra for the alcohol, but it's so worth it. And I'm just thinking to myself no, absolutely not. That can buy me a new Switch if I wanted. It's just not my scene, I guess, which is interesting because I feel I've had to, for work and everything, just kind of be in those kind of situations where I'm schmoozing with a certain crowd, and I have fun doing it. It's just, I don't really want to make it a whole lifestyle where you're just expected to kind of order expensive wine all the time and kind of know what you're talking about. It's too much work for me. Another thing I like about this book is that she always presents all this research, scientific research to go with her experiments and tasting. She flew to a conference in Europe where she met with all these scientists who specialize in smell. They mentioned that smell is super important to taste, and then they also the one line that stuck out to me was that if by the time you've smelled something, you've already tasted it, and it's probably made its way to your brain already. And of course I heard that line while I was cleaning my oven with my Deep Clean removes all grease oven cleaner. And that thing, holy shit, it was so fucking strong. I had my mask on and I could smell it, and I went, well, I guess it's in my brain. Hopefully it's not puncturing holes in there because, I don't know, I already have shit memory. I can't. It's I can't handle any more memory loss. Then after that, basically on Friday, right after Thanksgiving, I noticed that my sink was flowing, my bathroom sink. It was moving kind of slowly, and I went, it's kind of slow. Let's dump some baking soda and salt and vinegar down there, which usually unclogs whatever you have that's blocking your drain. This time I kind of left it there and forgot about it. And by the time I came back and poured the boiling water down there, which you're supposed to do a few minutes after, it had all hardened into this blockage, and it's a brick of baking soda, and the water just sat there, and I went, fuck, I can't, it's Friday afternoon, I could place a work order and have maintenance come and take a look at it, but part of me was just kind of embarrassed because if they come over, they'll just see all this gunk lying in the sink and go, "What the fuck did you do, Amy?" What happened? So I went, you know what, I need to try to take care of it myself first. So I own a toilet plunger because I have to plunge the toilet, once in a while. And I took the plunger and I went, it's not exactly a sink plunger. The sink plungers are a bit flatter. Toilet plunger is that kind of like thing that sticks out because it's supposed to fit in the bowl of the toilet. It could kind of fit over the plug in the sink if you made sure it fit a certain way. So I did that and I plunged for 2 hours straight, and a gunk was coming out, and I had this mug with a broken handle, and I said I'm going to throw the mug away, and I just hadn't gotten around to it yet because I've had it since college. I was kind of attached to it, and I decided it's time. I took the mug, started scooping the gunk filled water out and dumping it into the toilet, and then I just kept repeating that process. I was like, I'm just gonna plunge, scoop the thing out, and hopefully it'll get to the point where it creates a tiny enough hold that it can at least get moving until I can get maintenance to come there on Monday or whatever. I felt like the bride in Kill Bill, where she gets beaten up and basically paralyzed from the waist down in the first movie, and she's sitting in that van and she goes,
"Wiggle your big toe."
She does it for however many hours, and as soon as it wiggles, she's that's the hard part done, and she eventually is able to move her whole body again. And I kept thinking of that while I was plunging. I kept on going as soon as a bubble forms, I'll know that some progress has been made, and that is all I'm waiting for. And I started talking to the sink, which is that's when I knew maybe something had snapped, and I was just you may be stubborn, but I am more stubborn, because my mother always says why did you have to take after your father in this? Why couldn't you be more like me? My father's well known for his stubbornness. So I was I'm not giving up. I've been plunging for a while. Lots of gunk has come out. It's got to give eventually. But at the end of 2 hours of plunging and literally jumping up and down, it had not done anything. And I went, it might be time to throw in the towel and call maintenance. But then I remembered that usually when stuff like this happens, they tend to disassemble the pipes at the bottom of the sink. So I looked up a YouTube video on how to disassemble the pipes under your sink. And I didn't have a wrench, which I don't know, I should really get on to order a wrench, just because I went, this is mighty inconvenient. But I ended up just using a towel, and I was wearing rubber gloves because of the gunk, and just twisting off all of the different, basically just twisting the knobs and unscrewing everything. And I managed to unscrew the pipes and get the clogged part out. The baking soda, I said, was in there like a brick, and I was just taking paper towels and just poking it out. But you know what? It worked. I was just hoping to get it to flow slowly again so I could at least use the sink, but I managed to unclog it completely, good as new. And not only that, the last time the maintenance guy came here, usually when the sink slows, I just place a work order while I'm at work, and whatever, they just come and fix it. But because of COVID, I was I'd rather try to do it myself first, But yeah, last time he came and fixed it, the little plunger thing, it actually kind of got stuck, as in I couldn't push it down all the way so it wouldn't seal the sink all the way. Not that I need to seal the sink, so I didn't really care. I was I guess I would just have that gap there, and it's been like that for almost a year. But while I was down there, unscrewing things and just I guess putting it back together, I managed to fix that problem. So now it's even better than before. And because, I had been messing around and stuff was flying everywhere, I had to sanitize the entire bathroom. So I was on my hands and knees like Orphan Annie. And I managed to basically put it all back together. And I don't know, now it's just, the bathroom is cleaner than it's been in a while, just because I haven't done a deep clean in a while, and I did it right after this. I wiped down all my, the counters, the bottles on the counter, and, Yeah, I just sanitized everything. And I was like, the pipes look all white. It's so nice. And I was just very pleased with myself. Like, in The Sims 4, like when you manage to, like, if you live in an apartment where, like, there's a trait for your apartment called needs TLC. And if you're in one of those apartments, like, shit always breaks. You can call your landlord to come fix it. But if you manage to do it yourself, your sim gets this, like, triumphant kind of like a skin. So basically, like, it looks like a very triumphant person. And I was imagining myself like that. I felt super triumphant. Like, who needs a landlord? I am my own plumber. And, but it really smelled bad. And like, while I was doing that, I was also thinking, crap, this sewage is probably in my brain by now, thanks to Cork Dork. After I finished all of that, like, I went, I guess I'm not going to exercise today because I already did basically strength training and cardio combined for almost 5 hours on end. And sure enough, the next day I was sore the way I have not been sore since I did conditioning for sports back in high school. It's been a while since anything like that's happened. So I went, you know what? It was like a workout. I learned how to unclog a sink and dismantle pipes underneath the sink, and you learn something from everything. So in the end, not so bad. All right, so let's get to the main event, The Strain. I finished reading that earlier today, and I am not sure how I feel. Like, I loved it, and then I got really annoyed by some things that happened near the end. So this review is going to have a few minor spoilers. If you don't care, like you don't read horror, then, feel free to keep listening. But if not, like after a certain point, I'm going to put like a little thing on the screen so you can see like where I'm going to start talking about spoilers. But if you didn't see my previous video, the book starts out right before World War II in Poland. I know I said before there was Romania. I think I got confused because the kid was saying that did this happen here? And I assumed here was Romania because that's where the action was happening. But no, I think it's actually Poland. So he's in Poland, and like his grandma is telling him this story about this nobleman that went off on a hunt to Romania years and years ago. And when he got back, he was just off. Like, he isolated himself in his castle, and eventually people started disappearing in the town, things went wrong. And then it flashes forward to the present day meaning 2009 when this book was published probably, and we are at JFK International Airport where this plane has just touched down from Berlin, and everything is dead, as in the flights are killed, they're like the door isn't opening, and they send out a crew to investigate. So it consists of security. By the time they get onto the plane, they notice that like everybody on there seems to be dead. So they're like, crap, like did someone unleash a like biological weapon? Like, is this like a virus? Like, what is it? So they bring in the CDC, and that this is our main character here, Ephraim Goodweather. He is like a doctor in charge of this thing called the Canary Project, which is this this team that comes in and investigates whenever there's like they suspect there's going to be an epidemic or a pandemic happening in a certain place, so they can try to basically stop it in its tracks and contain it. So he comes in, and he and his partner Nora, partner in more than one sense, like they're both working together and sleeping together. But anyways, the two of them end up going onto the plane, and they realize that while everybody appears dead, there are some survivors, including one of the pilots and like a different person in every section of the plane, like first class, business class, coach. And so these people managed to live, but like they appeared dead when they were first, I guess, poked at. But like when they were like checking in their eyes and like in their mouths, they basically came alive. So they're still alive, and they got they ended up getting quarantined. But while they're like there trying to investigate, like they start looking through the whole plane, and they find out in the cargo hold area there is a big rectangular box with like all these like carvings on it, designs and everything, and inside the box is nothing but some dirt. And at this point I mentioned that I didn't look at the cover of the book, I didn't read the summary for the books, I didn't know what the heck was going on, but why does this feel like what happened in Dracula? Like, you remember, like if you read Dracula, do you remember when he was like like they were on this ship and they found that like coffin in there, and like that's basically how he was getting around like from place to place. This is kind of similar to that, except the modern day version, so it's on the plane. And like they find like use a black light and they find like evidence of like biological material on the plane. They're like, did this thing just shit all over the plane? And they also get like this weird sense that there's like a shadow in the room with them. They're not really sure, and then eventually the coffin just disappears from like the Bay Area where they are at, and they're like, where did it go? And like the security camera footage doesn't show anything, so what the fuck is going on? And you know, it keeps on just going forward, and like the victims who survived. The survivors, why didn't I just call them that? Like they basically escaped the hospital because one of them is a lawyer, and she's just like, you need to let us go. You have no basis to hold us here. So they get to leave and they go back to their homes, and they start noticing that something is very wrong. Like they are suddenly like sensitive to sunlight, like their throats are like aching, and they don't really know what's happening to them, but like they think they're just coming down with something. Meanwhile, Ephraim and Nora are investigating, like looking at the corpses still along with like one of the coroners for New York, and like they're going through and like they notice that like there's tissue forming in the backs of the throats of these corpses, which is very weird because they're dead. Like they're not supposed to be growing anything except maybe hair. Like they're noticing that like there's this tissue growing, and like also on the necks there's like this like little mark as if something's been like a very fine blade or something has sliced like them in their throats. You can kind of see what is going to happen according to this, and like the book kind of goes back and forth. So like there's this present day situation with the plane, and then it goes back in time to World War II again, where Abraham Satrakian, that is the little Polish boy at the very beginning, the introduction, he is I think he's 19 now, and his family, they're Jewish, so they're getting transported to like a extermination camp in Treblinka, and so he spends his time there, and while he's there he starts noticing that the people in the camp are dying because at night there's something moving amongst their beds that doesn't seem quite human, and we already know who it is because we have the benefit of reading the story from both timelines. But yeah, that's his first introduction to this vampire who has taken on the appearance of, do you remember that lord that I mentioned at the very beginning who went off on that hunt to Romania? So his name is Sardu, I think. I'm probably mispronouncing this, but it's spelled Sardu. And this vampire has taken on his form, and like, you know, he's moving around and just feasting off of the victims in the concentration camp. And of course, like, Abraham manages to get out, and he spends the next however many decades of his life hunting vampires, and he becomes like the modern day Polish Van Helsing, which is pretty awesome. And then the rest of the book is structured the way Dracula is, kind of. Like, I remember Dracula's structure, where it's like, you know, the dude gets over to the foreign country by being transported on, you know, a ship, plane, whatever, in a coffin, and he gets there, chaos ensues, and like they gather their little like hunting party with like the protagonist, who, you know, Jonathan / Ephraim in this case, and they run into this like rat exterminator, and he's like the other dude that appears in Dracula. I don't remember his name, but he was into what's her face, Lucy. But yeah, like they kind of like it's the same kind of team, and then like Abraham is Van Helsing, and like they go to hunt down this vampire. I want to call him a vampire alpha, thanks to Supernatural. I don't remember, like, he's basically one of the like original vampires. Like, there are 7 of them. 3 stayed in the old world, 3 went to the new world. There is a unspoken pact in place. They're not supposed to interfere in each other's business, and this guy is just like a rogue, and he's like, I'm gonna do what I want. But he can't do what he wants without human interference, so there's this rich old fogey, and here is where the spoilers are coming in. This rich old fogey who appears at the very beginning, and he is the one who is like orchestrating all this, because he wants his vampires to make it over to America. And at first we're like, why the hell do you want that? Like, do you want to just get revenge on somebody? What's going on? And then you find out that he was very sickly as a child, and he's like, everybody just takes their health for granted, but I want I know the value of it. I want to be healthy. I want to live, like, really live life and not just be hooked up to machines like I've been for my entire life practically. So the reason he's bringing this vampire over is, can you guess it, so that he can make him immortal. Even though the vampires are considered like the monsters in here, like, who is the real monster really? It is always humans. Because the vampire cannot travel across bodies of water without a human transporting them or inviting them. In this case, obviously, he got an invitation from a human to come over. I don't even know why he would risk it, because the vampires in here, like, I have said it before in another video that I like vampires as antagonists. Like, there's this book, what I love about it is it takes away like the whole romance of being a vampire. Like, I love Interview with the Vampire, like that, the Vampire Chronicles series by Anne Rice. Love it. And like, I enjoyed Vampire Diaries up to a certain point, and like there's just something appealing about like Dracula himself. Like, I kind of get it. Like, there's like this kind of like dangerous, mysterious side to them that's just kind of alluring, and the way like they behave, like, it just people are attracted to them. The vampires in here, you do not get that sense. Like, they are basically the way that Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan write them. Like, they're supposed to be like a virus. Like, they need a host. They kind of latch onto you. They start to transform your internal organs, and it's like a cancer. It latches on, and then like they take over your body, and like you're obviously no longer yourself. And when I think about that, I'm like, it's just so risky. Like, you could either end up as a like the only immortals so far that seem to have personalities, or like seem to still be able to have free will and like think like the way like maybe a human would, are like the originals, like the original 7. Everybody else, like they behave more like zombies. Like, they're just completely mindless, and it really does not hold back on like all the disgusting parts of being a vampire. Like, in this case, like, they kind of turn into like this kind of bug-like creature. Like, I mean, they still look like their human forms, but like more monstrous. But like they'll be eating, and like they'll be shitting at the same time. Like, it's just like, but like the poop they like basically like push out of their bodies, it looks like rat poop. So it's like, imagine like rat poop but in like human proportions. So it's just all over the place. Like, they'll be, and like by eating I mean like sucking up blood. So they'll be taking out the blood, and then all of a sudden it goes out and like this rat poop gunk like thing, and it just, and like they'll just like be walking and just urinating. Like, they did like there is no, like I said, like, there's no beautiful side to this. Like, these vampires are not the vampires that, like, from Twilight or whatever. Like, you look at them and you're like, oh, fucking God, that's gross. Like, and like I said, I hate unclean things. And there's just so much of that in there. Like, they mentioned, like, vampires, they displace rats and bats and, like, wolves and, like, all those creatures. So then people will always see those coming out in large numbers, and they see vampires appearing, like children disappearing, whatever, and they start going, oh, like maybe vampires can transform into bats. But that is not the case. They are just simply taking the place of the bats and the rats because they want, those underground tunnels for themselves, because they can't stand the sun. And so, the rat exterminator character, actually, that was one of my favorite parts of the book. Like, I really like seeing like the behind the scenes of how certain jobs work. And with this one, like, the rat exterminator kind of explains his job. Like, he goes to a house and he sees like this little girl got bitten in the mouth by a rat, and like it's a very rich neighborhood. He's like, why the fuck are rats coming out everywhere? And he looks outside and he talks about like how when you kill a rat, you can't just kill the rat, you have to go like to its food source and get rid of it, push it out of its nest, like kind of like a roach, I guess. And like he looks outside like the alley behind her house, and he sees like these rats just squeezing out between the cobblestones. And like they said, like apparently the rats can, like, I don't know if they, I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but they can compress their bodies and like squeeze through tiny holes. And I was just like, barf when I was reading that. And while I was playing the game Hades over the weekend, like I swear this is not just a tangent, I like fought a lot of monsters and a lot of big bosses in each of the levels, and my least favorite creature that I fought was a rat. Hear me out here. I would seriously rather fight a big boss than fight a rat, just because these rats, like, they're gigantic, and they have, like, little rats accompanying them, and, like, when they come at you, like, they're, like, they randomly, like, if you hit them, they, like, pause, and they start twitching, like, really, like, shaking, and, like, all this radioactive green gunk pours out of them, like they're just regurgitating this shit. And if you happen to step in it, which you kind of have to do sometimes if you have a short range weapon, basically your HP takes a gigantic hit. And I'm like, not only am I being vomited on, I'm also dying, and it really sucks. But it's just completely gross. And I went, and of course, like right after that, I was reading The Stray, and I went, just back and forth. I was playing, reading The Stray, and I went, what? So many fucking rats. It's just so gross. But yeah, like, I was just completely disgusted. Like, like, I don't scare very easily, but I do get disgusted easily, so this book completely grossed me out. Over to, like, I guess even bigger spoilers. Like I said, I love this book. Like, I think it's kind of like a movie, like kind of like a TV show. Hang on, I had to go refill my glass. But yeah, this book is just very movie-like in certain scenes, and, like, that is both a pro and a con. Like, at first I was like, wow, like, I really like it when I can read books and, like, kind of, like, picture them happening in my mind, like playing like a movie reel. I love that. But there are some scenes that this just does not work for. Like, I'm reading it and I'm like, I can see, like, maybe if it's on screen, like, this would be where it cuts away to, like, a different character's perspective. But in book form, it just felt very unsatisfying. Like, there are some scenes where, like, he'll be building up to something, right? And, like, for example, like, this is near the end, like, Ephraim's on the wanted list because he's been, like, they're just going after him. And, like, he ends up going to, like, the different houses to, like, on his, like, quest to, like, kind of hunt down these vampire creatures and find, like, the alpha vampire, whatever. And like certain things happen where you're like, oh my god, like, they're screwed, how are they gonna get out of this one? And then the next scene, they've just gotten out of it, and I'm like, well, what happened? Like, how did they get out of it? Like, I feel like I was kind of ripped off a little bit. Like, I wanted to know, like, how they got to where they got to, and maybe I just missed something. Like, I swear I wasn't drinking while I was reading. Also, like, another thing that annoyed me was Ephraim himself. Like, just like, okay, so Ephraim is about to get divorced from his wife, like, who is the mother of his child, who is, like, the most important thing to both of them in the world. They're in, like, a custody battle at the beginning of the book, and he, like, I knew he was trying to hold his marriage together still, but it didn't work, and, like, you know, like I said, he's sleeping with his partner, like, his work wife, Nora, and, like, and he's fine with that. Like, they're both like, oh, yeah, like, I'm, like, Ephraim's moving on, he's gonna be with Nora, and, like, Kelly, his ex-wife, is now with a different dude who's, like, very boring, and he calls this guy Kelly's compensation life, which I thought was hilarious, because, you know, Ephraim, it really does seem like a downgrade from Ephraim to this dude, honestly, but yeah, like, he's just somebody who is very brilliant, and he just wants, like, this picture-perfect life, but he didn't realize, like, yeah, you can't be married to your work and to your wife and keep both happy, I guess. Like, I mean, I'm somebody, I get this, like, you know, I'm married to my work, and I can't imagine being married to, like, a man on top of that. Like, that's so much work, and to have a kid, it's just too much, at least at this point in my life. But but yeah, like, he's trying to have it all, and it's not working out. But yeah, like, I got kind of confused. I was like, Ephraim, why do you seem so wishy-washy? Like, I thought you're, like, ready to move on to Nora now, and, like, all of a sudden, like, you're just, I don't know, he and Kelly still behave like they're a couple sometimes, which I kind of get because they share a kid, but at the same time, not really. And yeah, like, I don't know, like, it's just, like, the way that the story is set up. I'm like, okay, so this is a spoiler, but I guess not a giant one. So Kelly's new boyfriend, whatever, like, he ends up getting turned into a vampire, and Ephraim is, you know, trying to fight him off, and a Polish Van Helsing, Abraham, like, he comes at him with, basically he's about to kill him off. And I'm like, if I were Ephraim, I would be like, oh, my teammate is going to kill off this dude for me. I'm just going to step out of the way because, like, I'm kind of incapacitated. Well, You know, not really, but like, you know, like he's like, he just attacked, he took me by surprise, my friend is going to help me, I'm just gonna let him do it. But no, Ephraim's like, no, like, I'll do it. And it's all down to the fact that, like, he just wants to beat this guy up because he got with Kelly, and I don't get it because, you know, Kelly is no longer with you and you are about to marry Nora. I don't know, it just frustrated me, and I went, this is not the time for this, Ephraim. And, like, same with, like, when they're going after, like, the vampire that's causing all the problems. They go, and he's like, you know, he's mine to kill, which is like really cool when you're watching like an anime or a movie on screen. But like when you're reading this book like this, I'm like, it's just not practical. And he seems like somebody who's just so practical because he's like, he has like that scientist doctor mindset, like very logical, and like it just seemed almost out of character to me. Like I know like he like loves his family and everything, but I don't know. Like I feel like he's somebody that can really prioritize, you know, what's important, and in this case he just threw it all out the window. What I did like about this book is just like the handling of a potential pandemic. Like if pandemic handling really does work this way, which I suspect it does after what happened with us and COVID, I am terrified for what's going to happen to us in the future. Like, Biden had better have something in place because, like, there's so much, like basically the bureaucrats in here, they're just like, we can't, like, you know, quarantine anybody. We can't even, like, hold this one victim who we suspect might be spreading this infection before they even knew it was a vampire. Like, they were like, this is possibly an infection. We can't do it because we're going to cause panic. And then even when, like, you know, vampires starting to appear because people are getting bitten and turned, they're just like, oh, we can't really shut off this area, that will cause panic. And people are out there on the streets panicking because they're fucking getting chased by vampires. And I'm like, oh, fucking bureaucrats, red tape. Like, I just hate red tape. And I'm just like, I think they got that part right at least. And this is the first book in a trilogy, so you can kind of see like, okay, well, nothing's really resolved at this point. You kind of have to keep reading to find out what happens next. And I'm like, okay, I am going to keep reading. I don't know how long it's going to take me because I'm a serial non-finisher, but I am determined to at least, to finish it sometime in my lifetime because I do want to know what happens next. And I heard there's an FX series, so maybe I'll check that out. Like I said, like it seems like it'll work on screen, so maybe like all the little bits that I found weird, like the jumps that didn't really work, might work more when they're on screen. We'll see about that. Anyways, oh crap, this video got long. I'm going to go ahead and end now and not go to sleep. Maybe I bought a new Sims expansion pack for Black Friday. Maybe I'll go and play that. Anyways, have a good night. I will talk to you later. Bye.